are about to start to read the names of 5,500 men who died in combat in Cuyahoga County. We're going to start with the Spanish-American War. Bert G. Bark. World War I. John V. Adams. John S. Allen. Michael Anastasi. Emmanuel Anderson. John F. Archibald. Thomas Brett. Edward Bartell. Henry A. Bartholomew. Earl L. Martin.
Private Ronald L. Martin, U.S. Army. Rondi H. Hewley, Staff Sergeant, U.S. Air Force. Thomas R. Caldwell, Captain, U.S. Air Force.
Thank you for coming today. First, we have to thank our Supreme Allied Commander of us all for this beautiful day, this weather we received. And so we are very grateful, and it fits the occasion. My name is Patrick McLaughlin. You all hear me back there? Okay, thank you. I'm president of the Greater Cleveland Veterans Memorial, Inc. organization, and I'm a veteran of the Vietnam War, the United States Army. Let me introduce the other officers at this time. We have our Vice President, Bob Camburn. Bob is the honor roll chairman, and he personally has looked at and generated biographical information on each of the 5,552 names on this memorial. And you can see that in our website, clevelandvetsmemorial.org. We have an honor roll. And Bob has touched, at one point in time, every one of those. In addition, the other officer is our treasurer, Joseph Meisner. Joe. Joe's a respected attorney. Both Joe and Bob are former or been Cuyahoga County Veteran of the Year. Joe spent many, many years in the active and reserve components, retired as a lieutenant colonel, very active in the community. This is the 50th anniversary of the dedication of what was then called the Cleveland War Memorial Fountain of Eternal Life. This is Marshall Frederick's, I think, favorite project. This majestic figure rising 46 feet above the basin represents mankind rising from the flame and the ashes of war. And in 1964, at its dedication, bronze plaques were placed on the memorial fountain with the names of Greater Cleveland war dead from World War II and the Korean War. When our organization began in earnest in 1988 to decide what kind of memorial we should have for Vietnam War veterans, we decided that World War I vets, the Vietnam vets, should all be together with the World War II and the Korean War vets, and we began with the Spanish-American War in 1899. And so to orient you, if you haven't yet done it, please do so after the ceremony today. You can begin at the northwest corner of the memorial fountain, and you begin with the first war casualty in 1899, and you can follow from there World War I, World War II, around the fountain, come up to Korea, Vietnam, and the plaque that we're here today. The purpose of this gathering is to see the names of our most recent war casualties of war, the 9 that we didn't know about 10 years ago when we rededicated this fountain, and the 33 from the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And 10 years ago when we rededicated, the GCVM added 1,361 names to this center fountain. We replaced all the plaques, which included 103 names of World War II casualties and 25 from the Korean War that had not been placed on there when it was dedicated in 1964. So, as you can see, over the 115-year period from 1899 to 2014, the men and women of Cuyahoga County have served this nation well and paid a heavy price. So why are we here today? A community that does not honor its war dead is a community without character. And Greater Cleveland, defined as Cuyahoga County, is a community with character. And that's why we're here today, and that's why you're here. So let us begin. I'm going to introduce Ron Schrocketwald, retired Colonel, United States Army, President of the Joint Veterans Council of Cuyahoga County. And Ron will post the colors. Ron?
Thank you, Patrick. We appreciate that. The colors are coming forward. But before we actually present the colors, I'd like to thank the people that are participating in our color guards. We've got the U.S. Army that's coming up before you, and would you please stand? We have the Gung Ho Marine Honor Guard. We have the Western Reserve Sons of America, and we have the Cleveland Police Detachment. So thank you for participating today. Our singer... and the Vietnam Veterans Color Guard. The Joint Veterans, actually.
Honor Guard! Preach it!
Lisa?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Order! Huh!
No. Okay. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. And we've asked today Jack H. Schron Jr., a member of Cuyahoga County Council. Jack serves as the councilman for District 6. He is president and CEO of Juergens, Inc., and served for 28 years in the United States Army, active and reserve components, retiring as a lieutenant colonel. Jack.
Thank you, Patrick. May we all join together in the Pledge of Allegiance that bonds this community, this country, all together as one. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are honored and privileged to have Father Colonel Joe Pescura for our invocation. Ordained for service in the Cleveland Catholic Diocese in 1954, Father Pescura entered active duty as a chaplain in the United States Army in 1963. He retired from active duty as a colonel in 1990, but continued to serve the Army as a civilian chaplain for 14 years. His overseas service includes a tour in Vietnam with the 25th Infantry Division. Father Colonel Pescura.
We bow our heads and we pray for God's blessings. Dear Lord and Father of all, on the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C., there is an inscription that reads, "Freedom is not free." The names inscribed on these hallowed plaques of this memorial bear witness to the truth of those words. Freedom does come at a high price. Lord, you have bestowed countless blessings upon our nation. Perhaps the greatest blessing you have given us are the countless people who have worked so hard and sacrificed so much in building our country and in making it what it is today. As this memorial reminds us, far too many of these people have even sacrificed their lives in keeping our country strong and free. It is our solemn obligation to make sure that we never forget those who have died in the service of our nation. For those of us who live here, the names on this memorial are especially meaningful. They are the names of those who also call this place home. We thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to honor their memory. Continue to bestow upon them peace and happiness. Grant their families comfort and consolation. Watch over those who serve in our armed forces today. Keep them safe as they continue to live up to the heritage passed on to them. Take care of our safety forces and all those who risk their lives in keeping us safe and secure. Bless those who have worked so hard and lovingly to establish this memorial and to support and sustain it. Help all of us to be good citizens and to do our part in making sure that those who have given their lives in the service of our nation will always be remembered. Watch over us, Lord. Watch over our country, now and forevermore. Amen.
Amen.
Colors. Up, out. Hey. Post colors. Up, out. Hey. Forward. March. Right. Pace. Forward. March. Left. 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 Left.
Please be seated. Thank you, Lisa. Before I introduce our next speaker, I want to inform you, Mr. Mayor, and ladies and gentlemen here today, that we're blessed because the Gold Star families of many of the individuals whose names now appear on this memorial fountain are here today with us. And if I can make a personal observation, it's been very uplifting to me to be able to communicate with them over the last couple of weeks. And they're the heart of the country, and as were their sons and husbands and brothers and grandsons, and you're going to hear about them today, which is the heart of this program. But at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege of introducing a former city prosecutor, city councilman, and city council president of the city of Cleveland. He is a veteran of the United States Army and served our country in Vietnam. Please welcome Frank G. Jackson, the 56th mayor of the city of Cleveland. Mayor Jackson.
I want to thank the foundation for inviting me to this rededication of this memorial as we honor those who have served, given their lives, and particularly honor the family members of those who have served and given their lives. But this would not happen without someone or some organization keeping it in the forefront to ensure that we do what is right by those men and women who have served our country. So I have a proclamation that I'd like to give to the President. And I'll read just the first part. It says, on behalf of the citizens of the city of Cleveland, I'm honored to designate July 25th, 2014 as a day of remembrance in honor of the rededication of the Cleveland War Memorial, Foundation of External Life, as the names of Clevelanders who have lost their lives to protect our freedom is added to this memorial. So thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Jackson. And of the 33 names from the current war that we've added, 9 of those names were residents of the city of Cleveland. Let us reflect briefly on 115 years of greater Cleveland history. War with Spain was ignited with the loss of the battleship Maine, which exploded in the harbor of Havana, Cuba in mid-February 1898. Clevelanders demonstrated their commitment in large numbers by volunteering for active service in what Secretary of State John Hay later called the Splendid Little War. But those who have served know there is no such thing. Greater Cleveland suffered a casualty when Bert G. Bark, a hospital steward, lost his life at San Juan, Puerto Rico on February 4, 1899, our first casualty of war of the 115-year period from 1899 to 2014. Less than 20 years later, Clevelanders and the world would be faced with the war to end all wars. On the eve of World War I, Cleveland stood as the 6th largest city in the United States. The 1910 census reflects that 35% of the city's population was of foreign birth. War touched the city early and directly with the sinking of the Lusitania on 8 May of 1915, as 7 Clevelanders were listed among the 114 Americans killed on the torpedo British liner. The United States entered the war on 6 April of 1917, and the armistice was signed at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. On that very day, 11 November 1918, 6 men from Greater Cleveland were killed in action. In all, we lost 808 brave men in World War I. And the war to end all wars didn't. On the official date of the beginning of World War II, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, 3 Clevelanders were on board the USS Arizona, including William L. Halloran, Cleveland's first World War casualty of war upon the formal declaration of war. The ranking American casualty of Pearl Harbor was a native Clevelander, Rear Admiral Isaac Kidd, aboard the Arizona. Admiral Kidd was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. The stakes were high. The war was all hands on deck. By VJ Day, 15 August 1945, the deaths of those Clevelanders would be followed by thousands more, a total of 3,956 out of some 160,000 called to military service. 6 of those casualties were women. Within a month of the war's ending on 15 August 1945, a victory parade lasting more than 3 hours marched down Superior Avenue, where it was viewed by 300,000 Clevelanders. Peace would be short-lived. Within a few years, our forces would again be sent overseas to face new challenges. The Korean War period marked the peak of Cleveland's rise as an industrial city, according to the Encyclopedia of Cleveland History. And the economy had never been better. In early 1952, Cuyahoga County was ranked 5th in the country in productive capacity. Large numbers of young Cleveland men were called to active military service, some for the second time. Approximately 44,000 residents of Cuyahoga County saw service during the Korean War. The ceasefire was signed on 27 July of 1953, but not before 330 Greater Clevelanders died in military service. In contrast to the enormous and joyous parades that marked the ending of World War II, there was little public rejoicing when the final ceasefire was signed at Panmunjom, creating the DMZ, which continues to this day. The Korean War has been referred to as the Forgotten War. But as we would see a decade or so later, the nation was to face, yet again, new challenges. As we have always done, we turn to our young men and women to put it all on the line for us. Our next war left an indelible imprint on the soul of America. A so-called undeclared war in Southeast Asia began formally on 5 August 1964. A peace agreement was signed in January 1973. Combat forces were out by March 29th, but the official end of the war is 30 April 1975. The Encyclopedia of Cleveland History reports that between 1965 and 72, about 154,000 men of draft age lived in Cuyahoga County. Approximately 15,000 Cuyahoga County men and women served in uniform in Vietnam. Of those, 424 did not come home. Not since the Civil War had America been so divided over the nation's policies and the mounting casualties. Lieutenant General Harold Moore and Joseph Galloway said it best in the prologue to We Were Soldiers Once and Young, when they state, "Many of our countrymen came to hate the war we fought. Those who hated it the most, the professionally sensitive, were not in the end sensitive enough to differentiate between the war and the soldiers who had been ordered to fight it. They hated us as well." When the veterans of Vietnam returned to our communities, there were no parades, no fanfare, and little or no acknowledgement at best. Most were finally able to shake it off, move on with their lives, getting jobs, raising families, buying homes, and yes, sometimes even a Harley. Operation Desert Shield began on 2 August 1990. Desert Storm commenced on 16 January 1991 and continued through 27 February. Our first casualty of war on 28 August 1990 was U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Randy Ulick. We will hear more about Staff Sergeant Ulick shortly. In 2003, men and women in uniform were again sent into harm's way for service in Kuwait and Iraq, then to Afghanistan. One war, separate theaters of operations. And in contrast to earlier wars, America fielded an all-volunteer military force. It will be some years from now before we can look at the current war on terror through the lens of objectivity. We will leave that to another day. Today, we honor Cuyahoga County's warriors and their families for their sacrifices. Today, we add 42 names to the Greater Cleveland War Memorial Fountain. Today, we tell the story of the commitment of a handful of our fellow citizens. Today, each name rests on the memorial fountain alongside 5,552 men and women who gave all for duty, honor, country. Who are those fallen patriots? Listen now, and we will know who they are. In your program, there is a listing of the 42 names added today. They are listed in order of date of casualty. Bob Camburn, GCVM VP and Honor Roll Chairman, will inform us briefly about the 9 men from earlier wars, 2 from World War II, 1 Korean War, and 6 from the Vietnam War. For the casualties of the Iraq-Afghanistan War, many individuals will inform us of these fallen patriots, including Gold Star family members. Let us begin with Bob Camburn.
Steve Zayak, Technical Sergeant, U.S. Army Air Corps. Technical Sergeant Steve Zayak of Cleveland was part of the B-24 Liberator crew returning to New Guinea after bombing targets near Hollandia when it was lost on April 16, 1944. In late 2001, the U.S. Embassy in Papua New Guinea notified the Joint POW MIA Accounting Command that wreckage of a World War II bomber had been found, and later, in 2002, remains of the crew were recovered. Zayak's name is etched on the Manila American Cemetery and Memorial in the Philippines. The remains of all crew members were laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors on September 6, 2007. Willard Whitwright, Petty Officer, 2nd Class, U.S. Navy. Petty Officer Willard Whitwright was lost in the Sea of Japan on June 18, 1945, during hostilities. Whitwright served on the USS Bonefish, a submarine which was part of an attack group operating in the Sea of Japan. Bonefish did not make the scheduled rendezvous and was presumed sunk in action. Whitwright was a 1941 graduate of Mayfield High School. He is honored on the tablets of the missing at Honolulu Memorial in Hawaii. Reuben Lee Mitchell Jr., Private First Class, U.S. Army. PFC Reuben Lee Mitchell Jr. of Cleveland died one day following his 20th birthday. Mitchell was a member of Headquarters Company, 7th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, serving in Korea. Once wounded, Mitchell was evacuated to the 44th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, where he died on November 14, 1953. Carl V. Hansen, Sergeant, U.S. Air Force. Sergeant Carl V. Hansen was killed on September 24, 1968. Hansen, who graduated from Cleveland Heights High School in 1964, died when the jet tanker crashed near Wake Island. On Memorial Day 1986, a ceremony at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial added the name of Sergeant Hansen among 96 U.S. servicemen who died fighting in the Vietnam War but were left off the memorial due to a technicality. Paul R. Lunsford, Major, U.S. Air Force. Major Paul Lunsford, 46, was among 18 crew members killed when their EC-121 intelligence plane crashed on takeoff in Korat, Thailand in late April 1969. The plane was reported on a mission connected with the war in Vietnam. Lunsford was a graduate of Collinwood High School and served in World War II following graduation in 1941. After the war, he was a member of the Air Force Reserve and returned to active duty in 1953. According to the Associated Press, Mrs. Lunsford stated, "If he had to give his life for his country, that's the way it had to be. It was a job that had to be done." According to his brother, Vernon, planned to retire from the Air Force the following year. Ronald L. Martin, private, U.S. Army. Private Martin, 20, was killed in action in Vietnam on October 13, 1969. Martin served with the 31st Engineering Battalion, 79th Engineering Group, 20th Engineering Brigade at the time of his death. Martin was operating in Gay Din Province at the time. Martin was born in Cleveland but moved with his family to Chicago in 1958. At the time of his death, Martin had two brothers, Darrell, 18, serving in the Army, and Kelvin, 19, serving in the Navy. Services and burial for Martin were in Chicago. Raymond D. Woodson, Lance Corporal, U.S. Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Raymond D. Woodson, 21, of Cleveland, died in Quang Nam Province on September 23, 1970. Woodson was assigned to A Company, 1st Battalion, 1st Marine Regiment, 1st Marine Division. David D. Campbell, Sergeant, U.S. Army. Sergeant Campbell, 19, was killed in action on May 10, 1971 in Thao Thien Province, South Vietnam. Campbell served with Headquarters Company, 173rd Airborne Brigade. Campbell grew up in Mayfield Village. His older brother, John Campbell, wrote, "My parents wonder what became of some of his personal items. They have no pictures of him in Vietnam. Nobody from the unit ever calls or writes. We wonder what American society lost when David died. We wonder what gain was purchased with his death." Clemmy McKinney, Lieutenant, U.S. Navy. Lieutenant Clemmy McKinney, 26, was killed April 14, 1972 on a bombing run south of the DMZ, Vietnam. At the time of the crash, according to the Navy, McKinney was operating weapon systems on F-4 Phantom that was down by anti-aircraft fire. McKinney grew up in a working-class black neighborhood on Cleveland's east side. He was the son of a Cleveland steel worker and husband of a West African social worker. McKinney was a graduate of East Technical High School. According to one report, because of his brains and bearing, McKinney became a scientist and a Navy officer during the late 1960s. Lieutenant McKinney was missing in action, and his remains were not returned to the United States until November 1987. The McKinneys had 3 daughters, the youngest not yet born when Lieutenant McKinney's plane went down. Randy J. Hulick, Staff Sergeant, U.S. Air Force. Staff Sergeant Randy Hulick, an Air Force meteorologist stationed at Ramstein Air Base, West Germany, was one of 13 people killed August 28, 1990, when a Lockheed C-5A cargo jet crashed moments after taking off from Ramstein. The military personnel aboard were headed for duty in the Persian Gulf. Randy Hulick, a 9-year Air Force veteran, was the first Ohio casualty in the Middle East crisis that began when Iraq invaded Kuwait. His group, composed mainly of meteorologists, was to join the huge buildup of U.S. and other forces in Saudi Arabia. Hulick attended Cathedral Latin and Cleveland Heights High Schools. His father, Ron Hulick, described his son as a fine athlete. He just did a triathlon and was going to do a marathon next month. He was home in November and ran every day. Randy and Hannah Lord Hulick, his German-born wife, were the parents of a 4-month-old son, Ryan. Staff Sergeant Hulick is interred in Alger Cemetery in Germany.
Thank you, Bob. Our next reader is Michael Barrazo, an Eagle Scout, and Michael's a recent graduate of St. Ignatius High School, is here because his Eagle Scout project was to assist our organization in researching for the honor roll. And he and his team of volunteers, including his mother, Sally, provided incredible work for us in providing information on many of the World War II casualties, which work is now included on the honor roll. So, Michael, on behalf of Captain Caldwell.
Thomas R. Caldwell, Captain, U.S. Air Force. The day Air Force Captain Thomas R. Cladwell left his England base in September 1990 for duty in Saudi Arabia as a part of Operation Desert Shield, his stepmother in Middleburg Heights called him 3 times. When I found out he was going, I was excited, Joyce Caldwell said. I wanted to say goodbye 3 times. The guy was fearless and loved his job. He was patriotic and willing to die for his country. I was concerned, but he said it was just a part of his job, and that was what he was trained for. Captain Caldwell, 31, was one of the 2 crewmen killed on October 12, 1990, when their F-111 fighter jet crashed in Saudi Arabia while on a training mission. When I saw a uniformed man ringing at my doorbell at 8 a.m., I got sick, she said. I knew in my heart he was gone. He was a member of the 48th Tactical Fighter Wing based at Royal Air Force Base in Lakenheath. In 1988, he married a woman he met in England. Captain Caldwell grew up in Parma and was a graduate of Normandy High School. He graduated from The Ohio State University, where he majored in political science. He had been in the Air Force for 10 years and was a weapons systems officer. He and his wife were planning to come here for a spring visit, and he also wanted to take her to Disney World. Captain Caldwell is interred in England.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we have Sean Ennis. Sean, a longtime activist with the Greater Cleveland Veterans Memorial, is a Vietnam veteran of the United States Army. Sean.
Robert J. Dowdy, Master Sergeant, U.S. Army. 38, was killed March 23, 2003, when the convoy he was with was ambushed near Nasiriyah, Iraq. Master Sergeant Dowdy, serving with the 507th Maintenance Company, graduated from South High School in 1982 and soon after joined the Army. Joining the Army was his chance to get an education and follow the example set by his older brother, Jack, a former Marine. After enlisting, Dowdy married his sweetheart, Kathy Kowalski, a Slavic village classmate, and they had a daughter, Christy. He rose to the rank of Master Sergeant in his 18 years in the Army. Dowdy was killed in an ambush near Nasiriyah, Iraq, and was one of 8 soldiers who died during rescue of PFC Jessica Lynch, who was being held captive. The unit was on a supply mission. Master Sergeant Dowdy was an old-timer to many of his soldiers, but he could run circles around most of the younger ones in his outfit. An avid distance runner, Dowdy kept in top physical condition. His brother, Jack Dowdy Jr., said, "I can tell you that he was a very patriotic and very loyal man who loved his country." Master Sergeant Dowdy is interred at Holy Cross Cemetery.
Thank you, Sean. First Sergeant Robert J. Dowdy. Next, we have Staff Sergeant Jacob Granger, United States Army, a veteran of both the Iraq and Afghanistan theaters of operation. Jacob.
Brandon Ulysses Sloan, Private, U.S. Army. Private Brandon Ulysses Sloan, 19, son of Reverend Tandy Sloan of Bedford Heights, was killed March 23, 2003, when the convoy he was with was ambushed near Nasiriyah, Iraq. Private Sloan served with the 507th Maintenance Company, died with Master Sergeant Robert Dowdy during the fight that occurred when PFC Jessica Lynch was wounded and held for a short time as a POW. Private Sloan lived in Cleveland Heights, Euclid, and Oakwood before moving to Bedford Heights in 2001, around the time his parents divorced. His mother, Kimberly Sloan, was living in Fraser, Michigan. In the fall of 2001, Brandon withdrew from Bedford High School, where he had been a defensive lineman on the football team. He later earned an equivalency degree. Sloan's father stated that his son's thinking to join the Army was altruistic in the sense that he was bettering his own self while serving his own country. He was very much committed to the cause of the country. His mother, Kimberly Sloan, said, "I am extremely proud of him for fighting for our country." 10 years following his death, a memorial stone was dedicated at a tree previously planted in his honor at Heskett Middle School, at which Sloan was a student from 1997 to 1999. Private Sloan is interred at Lakeview Cemetery.
Thank you, Sergeant Granger. Private Brandon Ulysses Sloan. Next, we have Commander Chaplain Hagan McClellan Sr. of the United States Navy, but assigned to the Coast Guard Command. Commander.
Brett T. Christian, Sergeant, U.S. Army. Tess Christian knew the moment that she heard on the radio that an American convoy in Iraq had been attacked, killing an unidentified soldier. I knew it was him, she said, recalling a mother's intuition that told her that her oldest child was dead. It's such a gut-wrenching feeling. Army Sergeant Brett T. Christian, age 27, who had attended Richmond Heights High School, St. Edward's High School, died in Mosul one day after U.S. troops killed Saddam Hussein's two sons in the same city. Christian, assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 502nd Infantry, 101st Airborne Division, was driving a troop truck that was blown up in an ambush. The attack came about 6 a.m., July 23, Iraq time. In Cleveland, it was still July 22nd, his mother's 47th birthday. Tess Christian, a single mother of 3 sons, moved to the Cleveland area from Long Island, New York, when Brett was 14. Tess Christian said her son always wanted to be a soldier and enlisted before he finished high school. In the Army, he was trained as a sniper and served a year in Korea before being called to Iraq. My son believed in honor, loyalty, good character, all those things, she said. He died such an honorable death. In letters from Iraq, Brett praised the Kurdish and Iraqi people and talked about the tough battle conditions there. This place is still very dangerous, he said. I have plenty of firefights to prove it. Sergeant Christian is interred at Arlington National Cemetery.
Sergeant Brett T. Christian. Next, we have Marty Flask, Executive Assistant to the Mayor of Cleveland. Marty is a United States Navy veteran of the Vietnam War.
Samuel R. Bowen, Private First Class, United States Army. A Cleveland man who saved the life of a fellow soldier in Iraq died July 7th, 2004 in a similar attack. Samuel Bowen was killed in Iraq by a rocket-propelled grenade. The man he saved from a rocket attack was home in Lakewood, recovering. I can't believe that he was under attack twice in 3 weeks, said the soldier who was rescued by Bowen's heroism. I just wish that I could have been there for him like he was there for me. Lakewood Army Specialist Ronald Eaton said, without regard for himself, without regard for what injuries he had, Sam grabbed me and pulled me to safety. He and Bowen served together in the 116th Engineer Battalion of the Ohio National Guard in Brook Park, Ohio. The family of PFC Bowen said that they were proud of his accomplishments, including the fact that he saved another soldier. I received a devastating notification from the Ohio National Guard officers that my husband died in military service in Iraq, Ms. Bowen said. Tonight, I grieve the loss of my husband. I am drawing on the strength and grace of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, to help me and my family through this difficult time. PFC Bowen is interred at Lakeview Cemetery.
PFC Samuel R. Bowen.
Joseph M. Garback, Jr., Specialist, United States Army. Specialist Garback, Jr. was killed in a mortar attack in Iraq, July 8, 2004. He was a good son. He was a good brother. He enjoyed his nieces and nephew, his mother, Marilyn Garback of Brooklyn, said in an interview. The Garback family lived in Cleveland before moving to Brook Park in 2003. Specialist Garback attended St. Ignatius Elementary School as a child and John Marshall High School. Garback was among 5 soldiers killed in the Sunni Muslim town of Samarra, 70 miles north of Baghdad. The family was told a car bomb exploded in the entrance of the Iraqi National Guard headquarters occupied by the soldiers. Then a barrage of mortar shells from insurgents crushed the building. The attack killed the 5 Americans and injured 20 more. The 5 soldiers were members of the 1st Battalion, 26th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division, more popularly known as the Big Red One. Marilyn Garnbeck said her only son, the third of her 4 children, joined the Army in the spring of 2002. He wanted to be a paratrooper like his father, who served in the Army during the Vietnam War. The city of Brook Park dedicated in 2009 the Interstate 71 bridge that spans Snow Road in the memory of Specialist Garnbeck. Specialist Garnbeck is interred at West Park Cemetery.
Specialist Joseph M. Garnbeck, Jr. Next, we have Captain Joseph Depew, United States Marine Corps. Captain.
Timothy A. Knight, Corporal, United States Marine Corps. The single deadliest day for American troops in Iraq hit home on January 27, 2005. In Ohio, across the state, families and friends mourned 4 young men who were amongst 30 U.S. Marines and 1 Navy medic killed when their helicopter crashed in a sandstorm in Iraq desert. Among the Marines killed was Corporal Timothy A. Knight, 22, of Brooklyn. At Brooklyn High School, the flag was flown at half-staff in honor of Knight, who graduated from school in 2001. He died never having seen his 5-month-old daughter, Chloe. Knight's father-in-law, Dean Deleghetti, said he never seen the baby, never held her. He was just talking to his wife, saying he can't wait to come home and see her. Knight married his high school sweetheart, Gina, not long after they graduated high school. Knight studied law enforcement at Polaris Career Center in Middleburg Heights and planned to make a career after the Marines. Corporal Knight is interred at Riverside Cemetery.
Corporal Timothy A. Knight. Next, we have George Vologianis, who is the godfather of Lance Corporal Andrew Nowacki. George.
Corporal Andy W. Nowacki, 24, of South Euclid, Ohio, died February 26, 2005 from wounds received as a result of hostile action in Babil Province, Iraq. Nowacki was assigned to Marine Forces Reserve 2nd Battalion, 24th Marine Regiment, 4th Marine Division. Andy Nowacki graduated from Brush High School in 1998 and enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserves the following fall. He attended the Cleveland Heights Police Academy and became a patrolman for Grand River in 2001, 3 years after joining the Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Nowacki was on his 2nd tour of duty in Iraq, the first in 2003. His mother, Sheila Nowacki, said that Andy was very proud to be a Marine. His death leaves a tremendous void. His father, Dennis Nowacki, said that his son was a Marine's Marine and a cop's cop and a man's man. He delivered the courage of his conviction. The Nowacki family has established the Andy Nowacki Memorial Scholarship Fund Endowment through the Lakeland Community College Foundation and the Andy Nowacki Foundation in order to provide scholarships to deserving individuals, students at Lakeland Community College. Lance Corporal Nowacki is interred in All Souls Cemetery.
Lance Corporal Andrew W. Nowacki. Next, we have Sharon Berry, the mother of Lance Corporal Thomas O. Keeling. Sharon.
Thank you. Thomas O. Keeling, Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Keeling, 23, served with the Marine Forces Reserve, 3rd Battalion, 25th Marine Regiment, 4th Marine Division, based in Akron. The families were told that Keeling and Corporal Brad Squires of Middleburg Heights were returning to base after rescuing 2 Marines from a burning tank. Their Humvee hit a mine, killing all 5 Marines instantly near Haklania, Iraq. Keeling graduated from Strongsville High School in 2000, and he attended Kent State University, graduating with a criminal justice degree in 2004. His stepfather, Robert Berry, said Keeling had been in the reserves for 4 years and was considering a career in the FBI. Keeling told Barry that he was proud of the job U.S. troops were doing in Iraq. He was just a great kid, Barry added. His family asked people to remember Keeling's accomplishments. He accepted his responsibilities, he honored his commitments, and he served his country. In 2010, Ohio declared the portion of I-71 that runs between Pearl and Boston Roads as the Lance Corporal Thomas O. Keeling Memorial Highway. Lance Corporal Keeling is interred at Holy Cross Cemetery. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Sharon. Lance Corporal Thomas O. Keeling. Next is Donna Squires, the mother of Corporal Brad D. Squires. Donna.
Corporal Brad D. Squires, 26 of Middleburg Heights, served with the Marine Forces Reserve 3rd Battalion, 25th Marine Regiment, 4th Marine Division, based in Akron. The families were told that Squires and Lance Corporal Thomas O. Keeling of Strongfoot were returning to base after rescuing 2 Marines from a burning tank. Their Humvee hit a mine, killing all 5 Marines instantly near Hakalina, Iraq on June 9, 2005. Squires graduated from Berea High School in 1997. Brad was fun-loving, always looking for a way to keep smiles on everyone's face and always looking for an adventure. Anyone that met Brad had their day brightened and their life was enriched because they were guaranteed a smile. Brad gave the ultimate sacrifice, his life for our country and our freedom. Brad lived life, loved life, and never regretted anything. Brad's priorities in life were love for his family, his love of our country, his commitment to the Marine Corps, and the mission at hand. The family founded the Corporal Brad Squires Memorial Fund and has dedicated a memorial plaza in Middleburg Heights, Ohio, to honor Squires and the other Ohio fallen men and women of the Iraqi and Afghanistan War. In 2009, Ohio declared a portion of I-71 within the boundaries of Middleburg Heights the Corporal Brad D. Squires Memorial Highway. Corporal Squires is interred at Holy Cross Cemetery.
Thank you, Donna. Corporal Brad D. Squires. Next, we have Barbara Boscovich, the grandmother of Corporal Jeffrey A. Boscovich.
Jeffrey A. Boscovich, Corporal, U.S. Marine Corps. Corporal Jeffrey A. Boscovich was one of 6 Marines killed on August 2, 2005 by insurgents in Haditha, Iraq, 150 miles northwest of Baghdad. Corporal Boscovich was 25. The reservists were members of Headquarters and Service Company 25th Marine Regiment, 3rd Battalion, headquartered on Smith Road in Brook Park. Boscovich graduated from Normandy High School in 1999, where he played quarterback and wide receiver for the Invaders, recently living in North Royalton. He joined the Marine Corps Reserves not long after graduating, then studied criminal justice at Cuyahoga Community College. He graduated as class president of his Tri-C Academy. He was working full-time as a corporate security supervisor for National City Bank in downtown Cleveland, and part-time as a Geauga County deputy sheriff when he was sent overseas. He convinced his father that there were good reasons America was fighting in Iraq. I hope people in their daily lives stop and think about that and the true changes that we may not see now, but in the future, that will make this a better planet. His father, James Boscovich, said, "We're proud of him, and we look at him as a true hero. just like the other men and women who are serving in Iraq. Corporal Boscovich, our grandson, is interred at Holy Cross Cemetery.
Thank you, Barbara. Corporal Jeffrey A. Boscovich. Next, we have Captain Patrick Murphy, United States Coast Guard.
Edward A. Schroeder II, Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps. 14 members of Brook Park's 25th Regiment, 3rd Battalion Marines were killed Wednesday, June 3rd, 2005, when their amphibious assault vehicle was hit by an improvised explosive device during combat operations south of Haditha, Iraq. Lance Corporal Edward August Schroeder II, 23, of Cleveland, whom friends and family called Augie, was among the casualties. Schroeder was remembered as one who worked in concert with others, as an emergency medical technician, a lifeguard, a Boy Scout, a church youth counselor, and lastly, a Marine. His mother, Rosemary Palmer, traced the origin of his team consciousness to his preschool years spent with his family in China. Schroeder went on to college after high school, and family tradition dictated he attend Ohio State University, where he studied criminal justice. He started to think about enlisting after the September 11th attacks. Schroeder was remembered by family and friends for his wicked sense of humor. Lance Corporal Schroeder is interred at Lutheran Cemetery.
Lance Corporal Edward A. Schroeder II. Next, we have John Rice, the Executive Director of the Cuyahoga County Veterans Service Commission and a U.S. Army veteran of Iraq.
Robert F. Eckfield, Jr., Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Lance Corporal Robert F. Eckfield, Jr., 23, of West 89th Street, Cleveland, Ohio, died October 27, 2005, from an indirect fire explosion in Saklahia, Iraq. He was assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 6th Marine Regiment, 2nd Marine Division, 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. Having served 2 tours of duty in Iraq, he had a bad feeling about returning for his 3rd tour on September 18th. He made his mother, Mrs. Virginia Taylor, promise to have him buried at Arlington National Cemetery if he did not survive. An uncle and a grandfather were Marines, and he wanted to be one since he was 12 years old. His stepfather, Norm Taylor, said he worked extra hard to get into the Marine uniform in the first place. Lance Corporal Eckfield had dropped out of John Marshall High School, but needed a high school diploma before he could enlist. He enrolled at Cleveland Christian Academy, attached to St. Luke Lutheran Church, and finished up in 8 months. His cousin, Richard Samkus, said he remembered Eckfield for his honor, the way he honored the military every time he put on that uniform. Lance Corporal Eckfield is interned at Arlington National Cemetery.
Lance Corporal Robert F. Eckfield, Jr. Next, we have Sandra Mendez Ruiz, the sister of Lance Corporal David A. Mendez Ruiz. Sandra.
David A. Mendez Ruiz, Lance Corporal, U.S. Marine Corps. Lance Corporal David A. Mendez Ruiz, 20, died November 12, 2005, from an improvised explosive device during action against enemy forces in Almeria, Iraq. Mendez Ruiz was assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marine Regiment, 1st Marine Division, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, but the unit was attached to the 2nd Marine Division, 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. He was born in Guatemala, the youngest of 9 children, and came to Cleveland with his family in 1991 when he was 6 years old. Mendez Ruiz entered the Marines after graduation from the Greater Cleveland Christian Academy in Middleborough Heights. He spent almost 8 months in Iraq in 2004, returned home and broke his back during a snowboard accident. After recuperating, he left to return to Iraq for his 2nd tour on the 4th of July. In early 2006, David was posthumously granted U.S. citizenship and in 2011, Ohio declared that portions of State Routes 42 and 3rd within Cuyahoga County be designated the Lance Corporal David Mendez Ruiz Memorial Highway. Lance Corporal Mendez Ruiz is interred at the Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery.
Thank you, Sandra. Lance Corporal David A. Mendez Ruiz. Next, we have Pamela Martin, the sister of Master Sergeant Joseph J. Andres, Jr. Pamela.
Joseph J. Andres, Jr., Master Sergeant, U.S. Army. Master Sergeant Joseph J. Andres, Jr., 34, of Seven Hills, died in Balad, Iraq, on December 24, 2005, of injuries he had sustained earlier that day when he was attacked by enemy forces during combat operations. Andrus was assigned to the U.S. Army Headquarters Company, Special Operations Command, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. A 1989 graduate of Padua Franciscan High School, he had been expected home before the new year. Described as an adventurous sort, but responsible by his father, Andrus was on the honor roll for 4 years, played drums in the symphony orchestra, ran track, and wrestled, earning a citizenship award in the latter sport. St. Comkill Grade School classmates established the Joseph J. Andrus Memorial Scholarship Fund in his honor. Andrus went to the University of Cincinnati to study materials engineering, but left after 2 years to fulfill his dream of becoming the best of the best within the U.S. Army. He started as a medic in the Army in 1992, then worked as a medic and medical non-commissioned officer at Fort Bliss, Texas, and Germany, eventually qualifying for Airborne, Special Forces, and Ranger. His family would like us to reflect and remember why men like him serve this great country with such passion and conviction. Master Sergeant Andrus is interred at Arlington National Cemetery.
Thank you, Pamela. Master Sergeant Joseph J. Andrus, Jr. Next, we have Staff Sergeant Tyler White, United States Air Force.
Alicia Sabrina Good, Senior Airman, U.S. Air Force. Senior Airman Alicia S. Good, 23, of Broadview Heights, Ohio, died on February 17, 2006, when two CH-53 helicopters crashed into the Gulf of Aden, northern Djibouti, while on a training mission as part of the Combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa. The task force falls under the U.S. Central Command. The command is also responsible for operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. Good was assigned to the 92nd Communications Squadron. It was her first deployment overseas. A 4-year Air Force veteran, Good was a tactical radio operator aboard one of the helicopters that went down with 8 Marines and 2 Air Force crew members. Good graduated from Brecksville Broadview Heights High School in 2001 and joined the Air Force that fall. Good was a single mom with a 2-year-old daughter, Tabitha. Good's twin sister Ashley said that Alicia was especially devoted to her daughter Tabitha, who she wanted to grow up in a world that was safe and a world that was free. Senior Airman Good is interred at Sevierville Cemetery, Dixon, California.
Senior Airman Alicia S. Good. Next, I introduce Senior Chief Petty Officer Kerry Jones, United States Navy.
Charles M. King, First Sergeant, U.S. Army. First Sergeant Charles M. King, age 48, assigned to the 1st Battalion, 67th Armored Regiment, 2nd Brigade, 4th Infantry Division, was among 3 servicemen killed October 14, 2006 when a roadside bomb exploded near the armored vehicle. King was the senior officer in a convoy on a resupply mission when the vehicle was hit near Baghdad, Iraq. First Sergeant King, who grew up in the Lee Miles neighborhood of Cleveland, joined the Army in 1987 and served in Iraq in 1990 and 91 as part of Operation Desert Storm. He attended Cuyahoga Community College and received an Associate of Arts degree from Chamberlain Junior College in Boston and also attended the Art Institute of Chicago. King and his fiancée, Dana Kennedy, who lives in New York, have a 6-month-old son, Jordan Kennedy King. whom King saw for the first time in September 2006. He also has a daughter, Christina, 15, of Keelan, Texas. He wrote a 200-page journal to the baby while he was in Iraq, telling him everything he thought he would need to know to grow up. Kennedy said he started the journal with a letter to me saying, "This is the letter every soldier should write." And he ended it with a letter to his son saying, "I will do my best to make you and your mother proud." First Sergeant King is interred at Evergreen Cemetery.
First Sergeant Charles M. King. Next is Sergeant Timothy Stewman, United States Marine Corps.
Michael M. Kashkush, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. Sergeant Michael McLaren Kashkush, 24, of Chagrin Falls, died January 23, 2007, 10 days after arriving in Iraq, of wounds received while conducting combat operations in Al-Anbar province. A 2001 graduate of Chagrin Falls High School, he tried college here and in Texas, then told his dad college wasn't for him. His father, Marwan Kashkush, recalled his son saying that he had always admired the Marines and he needed their discipline. Kashkush wanted his son to finish college first, then join up and become an officer. "I've got to be a grunt first," he told his father. He enlisted in 2003, made sergeant by mid-2005, and learned Arabic at the Defense Language School in California, where he was a counterintelligence specialist with the 3rd Intelligence Battalion, 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force. In honor of Sergeant Kashkush, the Chagrin Falls Post Office was renamed in August 2008. Sergeant Kashkush is interred at Evergreen Hill Cemetery.
Sergeant Michael M. Kashkush. Next we have the Reverend Anthony Wiggins, the father of Staff Sergeant Michael Joseph Wiggins.
Michael J. Wiggins, Staff Sergeant, U.S. Army. Staff Sergeant Michael J. Wiggins, 24, died on January 23, 2007 in Balad, about 60 miles north of Baghdad, Iraq. Wiggins was assigned to the 79th Explosive Ordnance Disposal Battalion. He went to Iraq as an ammunition specialist on October 29, 2006, after being stationed in Kuwait in 2004. A 1998 graduate of Shaw High School, Michael was a standout on the Shaw High cross-country team and a member of the school's Reserve Officer Training Corps. Although he excelled academically at Shaw High, he chose the Army over college scholarship offers and entered as a private first class due to his ROTC experience. Wiggins served as a junior deacon and member of the choir at the Friends Fellowship Bible Church. Through the church, the Staff Sergeant Michael J. Wiggins Scholarship Fund was established to aid high school graduates from the church to go to college. At the funeral service, Wiggins' father and myself eulogized his only son, and well, I wish to God I could have died in your place. Michael Wiggins is interred at Lakeview Cemetery. God bless you all.
Thank you, Reverend. Staff Sergeant Michael J. Wiggins. Next we have Sergeant Elias Bo Diaz, Cleveland Police Department, and a veteran of the United States Marine Corps.
Daniel R. Sherry, Lance Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Joining the Marines was a lifelong dream of Lance Corporal Daniel R. Sherry, 20, who became a Marine after graduating from high school in 2005. Sherry died April 16, 2007 from a non-hostile accident in Al-Anbar province, western Iraq. He was assigned to the 1st Battalion, 2nd Marine Regiment, 2nd Marine Division, 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. Before joining the Marines, Sherry graduated from the Fire Training Academy at Cuyahoga Community College. Service in the Marines was his lifelong dream. The family stated, in his short tenure with the Marines, he received 2 promotions and was looked up to by members of his battalion. a star football player at Rocky River High School. He won the school's Heart of a Teammate Award, which recognizes excellence on the field and respect from coaches and players. More than 1,000 people attended Sherry's funeral mass, where he was utilized as a young man, always coming to the defense of others. Lance Corporal Sherry is interred at Lakewood Park Cemetery.
Lance Corporal Daniel R. Cherry. Next we have Joseph Meisner, United States Army, Vietnam veteran.
Daniel Agami, PFC, U.S. Army. PFC Daniel Agami was described as fearless and a patriotic soldier who never hesitated risking his life for his fellow soldiers. Agami had a love for Iraqi children. He would give them candy and toys and help them build their schools. The 25-year-old Agami, who was born in Cleveland, grew up in Broward County, Florida. He was killed with 4 other soldiers in Baghdad on June 21st, 2007, when their Humvee vehicle was hit by an improvised explosive device. Agami had been in Iraq for a year and was assigned to the 1st Battalion, 26th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. About 100 people attended a memorial service for him at the Waxman Chabad Center in Beechwood, even though he and his family had been living in Florida for 20 years. Agami's kindness, generosity, humor, and selflessness made him everyone's best friend. More than 1,000 people attended Agami's funeral in Fort Lauderdale. His family was overwhelmed by this outpouring of support. Not long before his death, Agami had re-enlisted for 4 more years in the Army, and he was proud to have been chosen to be the new U.S. poster boy or model for upcoming Army marketing materials. PFC Agami is interred in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
PFC Daniel Agami. Next is Tom Croth, General Manager of Key Center. And Tom is here. We've asked him to read because he and his security forces, his engineers at Key Center, are integral to taking care of this plaza and to watching over it 24/7. Tom.
David A. Hearings, Sergeant First Class, U.S. Army. Sergeant First Class David A. Hearings joined the U.S. Army in 1993 because he had a passion for it. On August 24, 2007, SFC Herring 36 died near Tikrit, Iraq, of wounds sustained when an improvised explosion device detonated near his unit during combat operations. He was assigned to the 1st Battalion, 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 3rd Brigade Compact Team, the 82nd Airborne Division. SFC Herrings had served in Iraq for 1 year. He had been scheduled to return to the United States in August, but in April he learned that his term was extended until November. He was born in Cleveland, lived in Parma, and his family moved to Tampa when he was 15. Hernandez had communicated with his father once a week by phone or emails, and his spirits were always positive. He never spoke about his missions. He became a paratrooper and also worked as a mechanic for the Army. He had served 6 weeks previously in Afghanistan during the elections and 2 years in South Korea. His father, Ryan Herrings, said he loved the military and he loved what he did. Herrings and his wife, Shannon, have a son, Logan, 5, and a stepdaughter, Cheyenne, 9, of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Sergeant First Class Herrings is interred in Arlington National Cemetery.
Sergeant First Class David A. Harrington. Next we have Major Leon Melton, United States Army.
Michael L. Green, Major, United States Army. Major Michael L. Green, age 36, of Chagrin Falls, died January 7, 2008, in Langhar, Afghanistan, when the vehicle he was riding in struck a roadside bomb. He was born April 6, 1971, in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and was raised in Gaudiya. He graduated from Fairmont State College in Fairmont, West Virginia, where he was a member of the ROTC. Upon graduation, he attended the U.S. Army, fulfilling a lifelong dream of serving in the armed forces. At the time of his death, Major Green was a member of the Army Special Forces Command, assigned to headquarters, 5th Corps, Heidelberg, Germany. His parents said that Michael Green died doing what he loved best. Michael was military-minded from the time he was a young man. His mother said, he achieved what he wanted to do. She said that her son, who spent some summers working at Cedar Point Amusement Park in Sandusky, felt guilty about training young soldiers to fight, but not going to the battlefields himself. She said he was happy when he was deployed to Afghanistan. Before his parents were divorced, the family lived in Chagrin Falls until around 1998. His mother last spoke to him at Christmas. She remembered him saying the same thing he always told her, "Mom, don't worry." In 2009, a 2-mile section of U.S. Highway 90 in Gaudiya, Mississippi was named in honor of Major Green. Major Green is interred at the Biloxi National Cemetery.
Major Michael L. Green. Next we have Terry Davis, the mother of Corporal Brad A. Davis.
Brad A. Davis, Corporal, U.S. Army. My son, Corporal Brad A. Davis, 21, of Garfield Heights, died April 22, 2009, near Baghdad, Iraq, of wounds sustained when an improvised explosive device detonated near his vehicle. He was hit while riding as a gunner in the lead vehicle of a convoy while serving his second assignment in Iraq. He was assigned to the 82nd Airborne 82nd Brigade Support Battalion, 3rd Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne Division. Brad served in the Army's F Company of the 2nd Battalion, 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment. The elite unit of the 82nd Airborne Division was stationed near Baghdad and provided security during provincial elections in January of 2009. Brad had been scheduled to come home for a 2-week leave in June of 2009. As he did on other leaves, we expected he would be organizing cornhole and sports tournaments with large groups of high school and military friends. Brad graduated in 2006 from Garfield Heights High School, where he played safety and receiver on the football team. He had seen a lot on his first deployment and was looking forward to leaving the military when his current 1-year tour in Iraq would have ended in December of 2009. He planned to go back to school for a career in law enforcement. My son is interred at All Saints Cemetery in Northfield, Ohio.
Thank you, Terry. Corporal Brad A. Davis. Next we have Bill Willoughby, a Vietnam veteran of the United States Army.
Marco M. Sampson, Specialist, United States Army. Specialist Marco M. Sampson died on May 31st, 2009 in Tikrit, Iraq, while preparing to lead a convoy through Tikrit. Sampson was born in Parma and lived briefly in Columbus, Ohio. Sampson was assigned to the 277th Aviation Support Battalion, 10th Combat Aviation Brigade, 10th Mountain Division. Sampson lived near Ohio State when he enlisted in March 2007. He was on his first deployment to Iraq, arriving in country in October 2008. Specialist Sampson is interred in Holy Cross Cemetery. Marco M. Sampson, Specialist, U.S. Army.
Specialist Marco M. Sampson. Next, we have Grace Barnes Philo, the mother of Major Rocco Martin Barnes. Grace.
Rocco M. Barnes, Major, U.S. Army. Major Rocco M. Barnes died June 4th, 2009. In Afghanistan from injuries suffered during operations. Barnes, 51, was born in Cleveland and graduated from North Olmsted High School. Enlisting in the Army in 1978, where Barnes subsequently earned his Green Beret. He transferred to the Army Reserve, and in 1982, Sergeant First Class Barnes received his commission as a second lieutenant. At his death, Barnes lived in Los Angeles and served in the California Army National Guard, assigned as an individual augmentee to the 3rd Marine Regiment, 3rd Marine Division, 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force, Special Forces qualified. Barnes fought in Iraq twice and Afghanistan twice. The Marines asked for Barnes by name to join them on what proved to be his last deployment. Major Barnes served as the commander of a U.S. Army Special Forces Halo detachment. In civilian life, he was a producer and principal at Fishman Productions in Los Angeles. Also, he was director at the World Protection Group in Beverly Hills, where he was a bodyguard to the rich and famous. Lorraine Road, running through North Olmsted, is named the Major Rocco Barnes Memorial Highway. Major Barnes is interred at Holy Cross Cemetery. Thank you, Brock.
Thank you, Grace. Major Rocco Martin Barnes. Next, we have Ray Sykas, a United States Army veteran of the Vietnam War.
Jason J. Fabrizi, Sergeant, First Class, U.S. Army. Sergeant First Class Jason J. Fabrizi, 29, was on his 4th tour of war-torn countries when his convoy was attacked July 14, 2009, in Kannur Province, Afghanistan, by rocket grenades and small arms fire. He was the father of 3 with a 4th child on the way. Fabrizi was born in Cleveland and moved to Florida at age 10 with his parents, both Marines. His mother and father were both in the Marine Corps for 2 decades, and several other relatives served in the armed services. Fabrizi enlisted shortly after graduating from Armwood High School in Florida in 1998. He served in the 3rd Squadron, 65th Cavalry Regiment, 4th Brigade Combat Team of the 4th Infantry Division. He toured Iraq 3 times, having been wounded on a previous tour of duty. Fabrizi married Colorado schoolteacher Christy Cool, and they have a 2-year-old son, Lane, and a daughter, Reagan, born after her father was killed in action. Fabrizi also has 2 children, Jason and Tyler, from a previous marriage. Jason and Tyler, who live with their mother in Florida, also lost their Army stepfather when he died in Iraq in 2007. Sergeant First Class Fabrizi is interred at Riverside Cemetery.
Sergeant First Class Jason J. Fabrizi. Next, Ron Schroeckenwald, a U.S. Army veteran of the Vietnam War.
Richard A. Walters, Jr., Sergeant, United States Army. Sergeant Richard Allen Walters, Jr., 41, died on August 10, 2009, on his way toward hospital duty in Iraq. He was assigned to the 14th Combat Support Hospital. He spent his first 5 years in Parma, Ohio. This is where he met his wife and their 11-year-old daughter resided, Rachel. Were living so they could live near their relatives. And she was also doing that December of a baby that was going to be called Piper. He was a family man, a devoted father, said his brother Greg. His girls were his life. The son of a naval technician, he became a member of the Naval Reserves at the age of 17 and a regular from age 20 to 30. He had a couple of close calls as a medic tending Marines in Desert Storm. In 2006, too old to rejoin the Navy, he enlisted in the Army. He became a licensed practical nurse and hoped to become a physician's assistant. Prior to his assignment to Iraq, he served in the intensive care ward at Walter Reed Army Medical Hospital in Washington, D.C., tending our wounded soldiers.
Sergeant Richard A. Walters, Jr. Next we have Bob Waters, the stepfather of Master Sergeant Adam F. Benjamin.
Adam F. Benjamin, Master Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. Master Sergeant Adam F. Benjamin, 34 of Garfield Heights, was killed in combat in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, August 18, 2009. Benjamin enlisted in the Marines after graduating from Garfield Heights High School in 1993. Was promoted to gunnery sergeant in 2006. The explosive ordnance disposal technician with the 8th Engineering Support Battalion did tours in Iraq in 2007, 2008, and returned for a second tour of combat in Afghanistan in July 2009. Even as a youngster, Adam knew he wanted to be a Marine. In his MySpace profile, Master Sergeant Benjamin wrote, "Most people don't understand why we do what we do. I love my job." Yes, I said I love my job. How many of you can say that you are right where you want to be at this time in your life? I know I can. 4 years after the death of Benjamin, he was honored with a 70,000 square foot barracks in the Marine Corps base of Quantico, Virginia. It was dedicated in his name. The barracks was called one of the most technologically and ecologically advanced barracks in the Marine Corps. Attending the ribbon cutting ceremony in October of 2013 was his mother, Judy Waters, and his father, Frank Benjamin. Master Sergeant Benjamin is laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery.
Thank you, Bob. Master Sergeant Adam F. Benjamin. Next we have Bill Everts, the father of Major Michael S. Everts. Bill.
Michael Sale Everts, Major, United States Army. Major Everts, a 17-year member of the U.S. Army Reserve, lost his life in Tikrit, Iraq, on January 17, 2011. He had served as a signal and communications officer with the 256th Combat Support Hospital out of Twinsburg. This was his second overseas deployment. In the first tour in 2007, he served as an infantry training officer assigned to a unit of the Iraqi Second Army. Mike grew up in Moreland Hills. He graduated from University School where he played varsity football and wrestling. He was a graduate of St. Lawrence University where he was an honor student and majored in science. He completed the ROTC program while competing on the school's football and wrestling varsity teams. In civilian life, Mike was a pharmaceutical sales specialist for Shearing Plow Pharmaceuticals. He was greatly admired and a much-loved friend. Mike Everts leaves his wife Monique and two young sons, Zachary and Luke. His parents, myself and Marilyn, live in Moreland Hills, and his brother and sister live out of state. His aunts and uncles and cousins, many of whom are here today, also live in the area and make good company for us. Hardly a day goes by when we don't talk about him. As a final comment I had was that Mike lives and he continues to live in our hearts and minds.
Thank you, Bill. Major Michael S. Everts. Next, we have Paula Cancer, the mother of Sergeant Dennis E. Kanzler. Paula.
My son, Dennis E. Kanzler, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. Dennis E. Kanzler died Sunday, July 31st, 2011, on his second tour in Afghanistan. A Marine sergeant who had completed 2 tours in Iraq, Kanzler, 26, died with 2 other Marines in Herat Province. They were serving with the 2nd Marine Special Operations Battalion, United States Marine Corps Forces Special Operations Command. Sergeant Kanzler, the son of former Brecksville Chief of Police Dennis A. Kanzler, joined the Marines shortly after graduating from the Brecksville Bravia Heights High School in 2003. The terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 were a major consideration in that decision. Kanzler left Marines after serving in 2 Iraq deployments, but lasted only about 6 months in the civilian world. He said, "There is nothing like being with the team. I am a Marine. I belong over there. It is what I do. It is who I am." He was the father of 3-year-old Jack Ryan Kanzler. The city and county honored Kanzler in 2011 with the dedication of the Old Royalton Road Bridge over Chippewa Creek in his honor. In 2013, Route 82, Royalton and Chippewa roads within the Brecksville were named after Kanzler. Sergeant Kanzler is interred at the Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery. My son was a great Marine. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Sergeant Dennis E. Kanzler. Angel L. Lopez, Specialist, United States Army. Specialist Angel L. Lopez, 27, of Parma, died October 5, 2013 in Zabul Province, Afghanistan, of wounds suffered when enemy forces attacked his unit with small arms fire. Lopez was assigned to the 201st Brigade Support Battalion, 3rd Infantry Brigade Combat Team, 1st Infantry Division. This was Lopez's first overseas deployment. A graduate of John Marshall High School, Lopez grew up in Cleveland. Lopez, who enlisted 2 years earlier, was scheduled to return home in 30 days. He is survived by his wife Marie and their 2 children, 6-year-old Lydia and 15-month-old Antonio, in addition to a stepson, Isaiah Ramos. Maria Lopez said that he wanted to make the Army his career. "I am so honored that I was loved by a hero." Lopez's parents, Veronica and Santos Pacheco, received the Ohio Military Medal of Distinction awarded for their son's service in May 2014. Lopez is Cuyahoga County's last casualty of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. Specialist Lopez is interred at Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery. And upon the conclusion of this reading, I ask for a moment of silence for all here and for the Goldstall family members that are here with us today. Thank you.